but I promise you that the world is never going to forget Ida Arnett.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to our audience all around the world. Welcome to season 4 of Sit Down with Sid podcast. I'm your host, Sid. In a profound act of love and remembrance, Alan Arnette, known as one of the world's most respected chronicles of Everest, summited the savage peak of K2, the second highest mountain on Earth, on his 58th birthday, July 27th, 2014, as a heartfelt tribute to his mother, Ida Arnett, who he lost to Alzheimer's back in 2009. This climb made him the oldest American to conquer this feat at that time, a peak far more treacherous than Mount Everest itself. Beyond K2, Allen has also summited Everest and Manaslu. He has completed the seven summits and undertaken over 35 major expeditions, all while raising relentless awareness for Alzheimer's. Alan, welcome to the show, and it is an absolute honor to have you here.
Hey, thanks, Sid. I was honored to get your email and to be a guest on your very popular podcast. So thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. So Alan, before we kind of dive into the podcast, would you take a moment to tell our audience a little bit about your background prior to the mountaineering? We're going to talk about your corporate life as
Yeah.
well. So please take it away.
Yeah, so look, I'm just a regular guy. I was born and raised on the banks of the Mississippi River at elevation 300 feet in Memphis, Tennessee. I just had a regular middle class lifestyle. My dad was a administrator for a nursing home. My mom didn't work after she had my brother and I until we became about 10 years old. And then she picked up her career working for Sears and Roebuck. So just a regular, typical middle class family in Memphis. I delivered newspapers as a kid. I was terrible in school, but I was decent at running track. But I was more interested in how my hair looked and make sure my car was clean than I was getting good grades. So, but I ended up going to the University of Memphis and getting a degree in electrical engineering, which was a shock, still is a shock to me to this day. So I ended up getting a job with Hewlett Packard and moved from Memphis to Dallas, Texas. Dallas is not the place you go if you want to go mountain climbing. It's just nothing but hot, concrete and tall buildings everywhere, flat and windy and yeah. So anyway, I survived Dallas for about 8 years, but I began to develop a very good career with Hewlett Packard. Mainly, I was in sales primarily, and then sales and then management. And then I got an opportunity to transfer to Colorado, to Fort Collins, which is where I live now. And moved there in 1988. Mostly worked in the software businesses, and so had a really good time doing that. Enjoyed it immensely. Then I got an opportunity to go live in Europe with Hewlett Packard. And so,
Oh, wow.
yeah, I got a chance to go live in Amsterdam for 2 years and then Geneva, Switzerland for 3 years. Well, way back when mountaineering became a thought in my mind, but that's really when it began to crystallize. Was when I moved to Colorado, climbed a couple of our 14,000 foot peaks, and then in Europe, that's when it really began to take off. So.
And how did your love for mountaineering, was that an escape from the hustle bustle of the corporate world? Was that a hobby? What was it that attracted you towards especially mountaineering, which is a very, not an easy task for every person?
Yeah, Sid. So I think I was around 12 years old, and every year, every summer, my dad, Jim, he would take his wife Ida and his two sons, Kenny and Alan, And we would load up in the 1963 Chevrolet Impala, bench seats, no seat belts, those were the days. And we would go take a family vacation. We would leave Memphis on Father's Day every year. Usually from Memphis, we would go down to Florida. Occasionally we would go west. But one year we came to Colorado and we ended up in the little gateway city to the Rocky Mountain National Park called Estes Park. And I remember as a 12-year-old sitting and having barbecue at a dude ranch, all these smelly horses all around us, but looking up and seeing the Continental Divide in front of me, and just letting my little 12-year-old eyes trace that skyline, all those jagged peaks. And one of them stood out in particular to me, and that was one called Long's Peak. And Long's Peak is the highest peak in Rocky Mountain National Park, around 14,200 feet. And I kept looking at that, and something just came inside of me. And so that was a little seed. And so I was 12 years old, but I didn't really make my first mountain climb until I was 38. So I really became focused on my career and trying to become, successful in that element of life. And I really put all the climbing off to the side. But then I had that one experience on Mont Blanc, and everything changed.
Wow. Okay. So I want to show you this photo as well, and this is, as I said, this is extremely touching. And let me just share this as well. And let's see. Okay. Now, Alan, and this is from your website, alanarnette.com, for which we have put the link in the description as well. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Now, Alan, looking back at this iconic photo of yourself on the summit of K2 on your 58th birthday, holding your mother Ida's picture against the sky, what was going through your mind in that exact moment? Was it triumph? Was it relief? Or was it something deeper like peace?
It's a that's a That's an extremely complicated question to answer because there was no one dominant thought in this particular moment. Um, Often, whenever I do summit a mountain, I become very task oriented, and I want to get, I want to, if I have need to make a telephone call back home or, to somebody else or to get my picture taken for the summit photo to have proof. So I become very task oriented to get those things done. And then once that's done, then all of a sudden everything just releases. I mean, it truly is like a dam. Um, this particular photo is me on the summit of K2. It's the morning of my 58th birthday, and I'm holding that picture of Ida Arnette, who I have that picture right here beside my desk right now. She's been with me on every major summit that I've been on. And back in 2006, so this is about 8 years after that, she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, which is a cognitive decline of the brain of which there's no cure and it's 100% fatal. And sure enough, Alzheimer's took Ida's life in 2009. And I had been climbing, and I'd had my blog going, but, often I talk to people about why do you want to go climb? What's your why? And, and before mom passed from Alzheimer's, my why for climbing was pretty selfish. I think similar to a lot of people. You go out there and you have a good time, you go out with friends, you stand on top of a big rock and, you celebrate and have a beer and, call it good. Well, I began to not be satisfied by that for a number of reasons, but one, it just felt hollow. And so once I saw mom going through the journey of Alzheimer's, it caused me to reflect on my life and reflect on life in ways that I never had before. It really opened up a new way of looking at things. I saw the way she handled it with grace and humor and dignity, never once complained. I'm not ever, never am 100% sure if she ever knew exactly what was happening. I told her several times, and she would, just kind of giggle a little bit and say, "Oh, okay, all right, well, what's for lunch?" So Alzheimer's is a devastating disease, not only for the individual, but for the people that care for them, the caregivers, be they family or people in facilities. But I vowed to my mom. I told Ida one day. I remember she was kind of sitting in her bed, and I sat down on a chair next to her bed, and I said, "Mom, you have Alzheimer's disease. It's going to take your life, and there's nothing we can do about it. But I promise you that the world is never going to forget Ida Arnett. And with that vow, I began changing my entire focus for climbing, and I started to climb to honor my mother and to raise money for Alzheimer's research, medical research, nonprofits. So with this picture, similar to one I had on Everest and others, I'm thinking about my mom. I'm thinking about the vow that I made to her. Um, I'm thinking about how in the world did this guy from Memphis, Tennessee, make it to the top of K2? Um, and also, I'm extremely worried if I can get back down alive or not. Um, about an hour out of the high camp, I
Hmm.
started to lose all my energy and just absolutely lost the will to live and felt the life flow out of my body.
And is this coming
And
down after taking the
this is
summit, or is that going up?
this is going up, Sid. And
Okay.
that's the strangest part of this story is that I tell people all the time that if you get any type of altitude sickness, the only cure is to go down. And I preach that over and over again. But in this case, whether I was not thinking clearly or Kami Sherpa, who was with me, didn't recognize the severity of the situation, but we kept going. And as I thought about my situation, I thought about all the people that were following me on the spot tracker, little GPS dot, on the computer screen, just very slowly moving. But I knew there were so many people out there that were pulling for me, that knew why I was climbing. They knew who Ida Arnett was, and how important this was. And something entered me. Something came back into me. Um, it was some type of energy that caused me to pick up my ice axe and take another step and another. And I just felt an overwhelming sense of satisfaction and universal love is what I call it. And I'm a firm believer that I tapped into that energy unbeknowingly, not repeatable, but it happened. And I've had people say, Alan, well, they turned up your oxygen, or, it was God, or it was Buddha, or Mohammed, or it was your mother. And to whatever anybody says, I'll nod my head and I'll say, maybe it was, because I don't know. So, but I'll choose to believe it was the love that exists in the universe and in all of us, and that we're capable of tapping into that universal love, both in times of dire need, like I was, and also in
Hmm.
times of extreme joy. So I was focusing on getting the picture taken, thinking about getting back down. I called my best friend, Jim Davidson, who I trained with here in Colorado, and he gave me very salient advice. He basically screamed at me, and I won't scream in the microphone, but he goes, Alan, double check everything. And I went, okay, Jim. He goes, no, listen to me. Double check everything. So, okay, all right, I got it, Jim. And I can tell you later, but that was very present advice that he gave me, because it came in to save my life later on the descent, as if I wasn't in enough trouble as it was.
Wow. Since we're on K2, I have a lot of questions for you. So I also want to share. Can you tell me if you can see this screen? So this is the photo. This is the peak of K2 from the base camp. Alan, what is the height of the base camp here, right here?
It's
What?
yeah, it's 16,500 feet.
Oh, wow.
So it's
16,500
about
feet.
yeah, so it's about 12,000 feet, about 4,000 meters between, or three, oh yeah, 43 to 500 meters between base camp and the summit. And the route goes along the right hand side. That's called the
I'm gonna
skyline.
sh-
Yeah, there you
so
go.
I'm gonna sh-
Perfect. The blue line right there. So that's
so
the
that's the northwest. So this is what you took the route A, if
correct.
if I understand correctly.
Correct.
Uh,
That's the Abruzzi route, right?
okay. Uh, so apparently I was reading and they say there are these five routes. Is one of these routes more dangerous than the others? Or in your experience, which of these five, A, B, C, D, E, is the most toughest one to reach to the
Yeah,
peak?
They've all taken lives. Probably the toughest one is on the other side that's not shown on this picture because this is viewing it from the southeast, I believe. And on the north side, that's coming up from the Chinese side.
This is northwest face. This is
So
northwest face.
yeah, so but all the lines have all the routes have had people die on them. So pick your poison. The blue one is the most popular one. Is arguably the safest one. The
Safest
one
one.
on the E is also very dangerous. The middle one, the C, is called
Hmm.
the Magic Line, and that's also arguably one of the more dangerous ones. But it's pick your poison. They're all steep and they're all rocky and they're all icy and dangerous.
Okay. I'm gonna go back. So, Alan, can you tell us like how long it took you when you climbed back in 2014 from the base camp to the peak of this summit? Do you want to take us through a timeline, if that's okay with you?
Yeah, so you leave base camp. So it takes about anywhere from 7 to 10 days to trek in. You're trekking around 60 miles on a glacier to go from the end of the road to get to K2 base camp. You spend a few days there just kind of acclimatizing and resting up from the trek in. Maybe take a shower if you're lucky. Sleep as much as you can, get some good food in you, and then you make a trip over to at the base of the mountain. And if you let your eye follow the right hand skyline, go down to where it goes where it hits the mountain in front. You keep going down. That's where advanced base camp is at the base. You spend the night at advanced base camp. Some people will just use that as a quick, exercise rotation to come back to base camp. But most people will go to advanced base camp, spend the night, and the next day go up to Camp One, which is that first dark spot on the skyline on the right-hand side. You see the white snow, and then it turns black. That's about where Camp One is. Spend the
Okay.
night there, incredibly steep, not a lot of room, very noisy. But unbelievable views. And it gets even better. So then from Camp Two, you go up to Camp One, rather, you go up to Camp Two, and that's at the base of what's called the Black Pyramid. And that's right around where that little jut is, right above your cursor. Nope, go higher than that, up in the skyline. Go down right there, exactly right there. That's right where Camp Two is, right,
Oh yeah,
that
because
general.
that's the A line. That's where you the A route you took.
Yeah.
That's camp two. Okay. Okay.
That's Camp Two. And then from
Okay.
Camp Two, typically you spend the night there. The next day, maybe go up halfway up the Black Pyramid, and then up towards Camp Three, but then come back down and spend another night at Camp Two. So now you spent 3 nights on the mountain. And a lot of it depends upon when you start using supplemental oxygen, if you do. Also, the weather as to whether you do another rotation or not. Some people just do 1 or 2 rotations. That's what we did. So, but then you come back up, go back down to base camp, wait for a good weather window, and then return, basically retrace your steps to advanced base camp, Camp One, Camp Two, and now you're on your summit push. Go to Camp Three, which is where it starts to flatten out right there, and then a little bit higher is at the highest camp, Camp Four. Yeah, right there in that area. And then from there, you get there typically mid-afternoon. You get some dinner, try to get as much sleep as you can, which is almost impossible because now you're at about 26,000 feet, and it's
Wow.
really, really difficult. But then you get up around midnight, put on your boots, your down suit, put the oxygen bottle in your pack, and clip into the fixed line, and you look at everybody and say, "Let's get this done and get home safe." And then you start walking, and you head up, and you go up. The first obstacle that you reach is called the bottleneck.
Right.
It's a
Yeah.
little well, this is actually these pictures are really mislabeled throughout the internet.
Really?
This is actually the traverse. It's not the bottleneck. The bottleneck
Wow.
is at the bottom right of this picture, and it's basically a gully. It's a little valley that goes
Okay.
that funnels all the rock and the ice and the snow that comes off of the face of that Serac. And that's why it's called the bottleneck, not because people get trapped there because there's so many people, but rather it's where rock and ice gets funneled down through the bottleneck. And that's what makes it so dangerous because it's so narrow, you can't get out of the way if a rock comes down. But
Wow.
anyway, you get through
And
that
is it?
section.
And I'm sorry to interrupt,
No, go ahead.
Alan, for
Yeah.
a second. Is it true? I've heard this that the steep is almost vertical on the bottleneck.
Not the bottleneck is around 60 degrees.
Okay.
It's steep, but it's not, it's not
Too
vertical
much
like
more.
the Serac is that we're looking at right there.
Okay.
Um,
I'm gonna find.
so,
Please.
so then from once you get to the top of the bottleneck, you turn left and go across that traverse. And it depends upon the year. When I did it, there was nothing was kicked in. I mean, it was literally a vertical wall, and you front pointed your front points of your crampons in, and you held on to this little rope about the size of your little finger, and it was a placebo. I mean, if you fell, that rope is not going to catch your weight. You're going to fall to your death. So don't fall. So, and then you get across that face of the Serac, and then you start heading straight up, and then you get up to the summit. It's pretty straightforward from that point. Yep,
Okay. So I found another picture. I know you said that was not the bottleneck. That was the traverse that we were looking at.
correct. Right.
And
That's
then,
this is a good picture which shows where the traverse is or the bottleneck.
okay. So this is the bottleneck, correct? This area that we are looking at.
No, down to the left.
Oh,
Down,
down to
down
the
to
left.
down to yeah, to go to the right, right there. Nope, to the
Oh,
left,
right here,
right there.
bottleneck. I see.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's the
wow.
bottleneck. See, that's
Okay.
that little gully where all the rock gets funneled into. And that's why it's
Wow.
a death trap. So what we actually did though, we avoided the bottleneck. We went to the climber's right, just exactly where your cursor is, just to the other side of that. And we crawled across that big old boulder. Well, not a boulder; it's a huge rock. We crawled across that to gain the traverse across to go to the summit.
Got it. And then what about this overhanging Serac? This I have heard in a lot of documentaries on YouTube and so forth, that this is also one of the most dangerous things when it comes to, or let me rephrase it, and I want you to correct me. This is one of the most uh, dangerous things that makes K2 more treacherous and defying than Everest.
Well, it's pick your poison. Like I said earlier, there's like five or six things that make K2 very dangerous, and the overhanging Serac is one of them.
Hmm.
But I would say number one is just rockfall. And that starts all the way from, between Camp One and Advanced Base Camp all the way to the summit. You've got relentless rockfall. You also have relentless snow and big ice blocks that are falling down. The K2 is the highest mountain of this part of the Karakoram, and that is exposed to the westerly winds. So as a result, the weather on K2 is very unpredictable, extremely high winds, extremely cold temperatures. So and then you get to the Serac. Yeah, the Serac, and this is the Serac just like the one on the Everest West Shoulder or on Aconcagua South Face. That these Seracs are just hanging there, and you never know when gravity and sunlight and evaporation, and everything else is going to conspire to cause a little flake of it to fall off. And that little flake could be the size of a house. And that's what happened in 2008 when a piece of that Serac caved off or calved off, and it slipped the fixed rope, stranding some people above the traverse that didn't have the skills or didn't have the energy to cross back across it without a fixed rope. And then other people got hit by the ice. Other people fell. And I think there were a total of 8 people that died over a couple of days between being trapped on the mountain and then fatalities of the objective danger falling. So yeah, the Serac is it's a dangerous component of a K2 for sure.
Wow. And then I also have this photo I want to talk about. Uh, uh, Let me just, yeah. I want to talk about Garrett Madison. I think you
Yeah.
did mention one of your best friends, and so is this also at K2? This photo that we're looking at, Alan?
Yeah, actually, I think Garrett took this photo, and that's me on my satellite phone. And this is Kami Sherpa from the village of Pangboche to
Hmm.
my right. And he also summited, or I summited Everest with Kami, and then I summited K2 with Kami. So and also with
Wow.
so he's my guardian angel in the mountains. And this gentleman coming up over my left shoulder,
Yeah,
that's
right there.
Sammy. And
Hmm.
Sammy he was the president of the Finnish Alpine Club, And Sammy was in the process of climbing all 14 of the 8,000-meter mountains without using supplemental oxygen or support. And here he is coming up on K2 summit by himself, no Sherpas, no oxygen, just an unbelievable feat. I climbed a few other mountains with Sammy over the time, but he was by himself on this K2 climb. Sadly, he died on Annapurna 2 years later
Oh,
from an avalanche. So
oh,
it's a dangerous
right.
sport.
It's a very dangerous sport, and but it's also so intriguing because you're kind of on top of the world. You're living off supplemental oxygen, and they say that most of the deaths happen when you're coming back down from the summit. In case of Everest, I don't know if that's the case in K2. Uh, is that similar for K2 as well, where the most dangerous part is coming back down once you peak the summit?
Yeah, well, I was just looking at those statistics yesterday because I'm doing my annual update of Everest by the numbers based on the Himalayan database research. And it ends up that 36% of the 339 deaths, so 36% of the, let's say, 350 deaths have been on the descent after summiting. So it's actually statistically not accurate to say that most of the deaths happen on the descent. But
Got it.
but the point is still very valid, statistics aside, because once you summit, I mean, often many people start to make mistakes because they're tired. They don't have any food in them. They don't have any water in them. You're undernourished. You're dehydrated. You could be suffering some small amount of altitude sickness. But more importantly is that all the adrenaline that got you to get to the summit, that pushed you to go keep going, that adrenaline now is drained, and all of a sudden now you're just a limp vessel. And it's everything you can do just to get clipped into the rope and change over the anchors each time and not fall and slip. I mean, you're really just, you're just like a zombie just stumbling down the mountain. And that's where you mentioned Garrett Madison. That's where having an operator like a Garrett Madison really does a great job of having his Sherpas trained, of having protocols in place that if somebody does start to show signs of cerebral edema or pulmonary edema, that you get them back down. By the way, when I started to develop my edema, um, I was away from Garrett. It was just Kami and I, and Garrett was far ahead, so he had no idea what was happening to me. Otherwise, I'm pretty sure he would have turned me around. Which I guess, in hindsight, I guess I'm glad he didn't because I survived. So, but it was kind of crazy.
Wow. Well, and is it correct? I mean, once again, uh, I find this very passionate. Like, this is so interesting for me because I love mountains. Since my childhood, I love mountains. I'm always attracted to heights, anything that's on top of the sky or something. And um, is it true that at certain point over 7,500 meter, your brain starts to you start hallucinating, you start having a brain fog or something?
Yeah, I'm not sure there's an exact, altitude. The term, the death zone, that was coined by a German doctor that he went to Everest back in, I think it was the 60s. I could be wrong on that, but it was that general time frame. And he started to observe that once people got above 8,000 meters or 26,000 feet, that they just slowed down, that that often they didn't make sense when they talked. They couldn't process cognitively as well as they did at lower altitude. And so he said that, oh my gosh, once you get to 8,000 meters, you start to die. This is the death zone. And that's where that phrase came from. And it's very true. Once you get above 26,000 feet roughly, I mean, your body is slowly dying. You don't, your body stops digesting food. It stops being hungry. You basically lose thirst. All you want to do is lay down and go to sleep. I mean, it's all you want to do. And you got to
Wow.
fight, fight, fight to stay awake, and much less now to go climb, you know, up to 29,000 feet. So yeah, altitude is legitimate.
Wow. And then I know you had mentioned that during the middle of the night you guys got ready and trying to go from the advanced camp to the summit of K2. I've also noticed this even in case of Everest and other high peaks. Um, Reason being is because you want to come back down before the sunset of the other day, correct? So you're not climbing down. As you said, the weather is very unpredictable. I'm just trying to understand what is the thinking behind climbing to the summit during midnight? And second question is, how do you see? I mean, you do have the headlights, but is that enough for you to see? I mean, take us through, please.
Yeah, so the reason that you make the ascent at night, and by the way, you could also do it during the day. There's no really hard fast rule around this, but the theory is that by leaving it your camp at midnight and targeting
Hmm.
to summit around dawn, that you're climbing during the coldest part of the night. Typically, thunderstorms and heavy squalls don't occur in the middle of the night. They occur during the daytime when the sun is out.
Oh,
So
wow. Okay.
arguably the chances of severe weather is slightly lower. But the most important thing is that the temperature is as low as it's going to be, thus freezing loose rocks into the landside, so that reduces the opportunity for rock fall. Also, because the snow is harder, it allows you to get better what's called purchase. Your crampons sticking in through the snow, so you get better purchase with your crampons, so a better grip as you're climbing upwards. And as far as seeing, well, if it's a full moon, you don't have to worry about anything. If it's clear sky and full moon, I mean, it's like being out in a city with street lights. It's amazing. But
Really?
more impressive is if there's no moon and you see the stars. I mean, if you, it's indescribable seeing the Milky Way. You can't make out Orion or any of Sagittarius, any of the Big Dipper, any of the constellations because there's so many stars up there. It amazes me how our ancestors were able to point out the constellations when there was no light pollution, thousands of years ago. But yeah, the headlamps are really good. The headlamps they shine very bright, very wide beam. And if you're in a line of four or five people, your teammates, everybody's got their headlamps on. Everybody's kind of looking down at the boot path in front of you. So it's actually fairly easy to see.
Really? Okay. And are you relying on the Sherpa's guidance or is it the other way around? Because these Sherpas, they make it look easy. I mean, I can't speak about K2, but for Everest, I mean, it's like as if that's their home, this is where they belong to.
Well, let's remember that. So absolutely, 100% Sherpas. I would say that 99.99% of the people that summit these 8,000-meter mountains could not do it without the support of these strong Sherpas. But let's keep in mind, Sherpas come off of centuries, eons of evolution of
Mhm.
being born and raised and lived on the Tibetan steppes, the high flat plains of Tibet at 17,000 feet. So they have got literally generation after generation after fill in the blank generations of evolution that has caused their bodies to be able to process and operate at lower levels of oxygen than what you and I do. We're not, well, I'll speak for me. I'm not genetically gifted so that I can go and operate at these altitudes without using supplemental oxygen. And I don't apologize for that. It's just, only 2.8% of the people that have summited Everest have ever done it without oxygen. And roughly, if you don't use oxygen, you have a 50-50 chance of dying. So, being at these extreme altitudes is just really humans were not designed for that. And every time we go up, you're rolling the dice.
Wow. And your first summit, the main summit was back in 2011. This is at Mount Everest. This is yourself, and you can see you're holding an Alzheimer awareness. Memories are everything. This flag has been to the top of Mount Everest and back. Can you walk us through this moment? I mean, so K2 came in 2014. Mount Everest came in 2011.
Right.
Was this the closest thing you ever felt to your mom after her passing away, being on the top of
Oh,
the world?
no, no. She has been like a warm blanket around me forever. So not a day goes by that I don't think about her or I feel her presence. This was just this was a moment in time where I felt very honored to be able to honor her and to bring awareness to this outstanding organization, the Cure Alzheimer's Fund. One of the reasons I like them is that 100% of all the donations go to research. None of it goes to paying for marketing or fundraising or salaries. The entire organization, all their overhead is underwritten by 5 families that have all been touched by Alzheimer's. But Sid, this is I have to every time I look at this picture, I have to smile because I'm smiling underneath my oxygen mask.
Oh, really? Okay, it's
Should
hard
have
to
taken my
see.
mask off, yeah. But because it was really an honor to have that flag there to get it there, because I had so many people also that were again believing in me. You know, I have to just say this as many times as I can whenever I have the opportunity that I have been so lucky, so fortunate to have so many kind people in my life that have helped me accomplish the things that I have. That I just am very grateful to all those people, from people that I climb with here in Colorado to people on my teammates that I never knew before that I met on an expedition and we got through tough times together, to commercial guides, to coaches, to a long list of people that have enabled me to to carry this flag and honor my mother and to try to raise money for research. And that's when you find a purpose in your life that's bigger than yourself, it allows you to do things you never thought you could do. And I think that's really my tagline for mountain climbing, is doing things I never thought I could do, through having a purpose-driven life.
That's unbelievable. And it said you summited Mount Everest May 21st, 2011. And once again, this is on your website of the blog, which we will also I'll show to the audience as well as is listed in the description. Uh, I actually did not know this was your fourth try to.
Yeah,
So you are 55 years old here. Um, you left your corporate life in 2007 when you were 51. Correct me if I'm
right,
wrong at any stance,
right,
right?
right. All
Now,
right.
yes, perfect. Please. So I'm assuming the three summits prior to this were they in consecutive orders, 2008, 9, 10.
Oh, heavens no. They were 2002, 3,
Oh,
8,
okay.
8, and then 11. So I, my first big climb, like I said earlier, was Mont Blanc. And that was in like 1997 or something.
Okay.
And then I did a trek to Everest Base Camp. Actually, that was in 97, a trek to Everest Base Camp. And then I climbed Mont Blanc 2 or 3 times to get prepared to go climb an 8,000-meter mountain, Choi OU, that's on the border with China and Tibet. I got to 8,000 meters on that one, and I didn't know what I didn't know. And I don't have a lot of regrets in my life, but that is a regret that I turned around half an hour before the true summit on that one, because we hit our turnaround time, and I just didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't realize how much strength I had within me, my reservoirs, which I found out later, especially on K2. But so then then I started doing a climb every year, and it continued for like 30 years. So
And this is while you're pursuing your corporate life, traveling the world, living abroad, Amsterdam, and so okay, so now I understand. This is something that's embedded in you, and it just took you to another heights, after 2009. Okay, now how was it when you so let me rephrase this. You summited Mount Everest in 2011. You summited K2 in 2014, 3 years later. The first question to you is, was the preparation for both of these identical or were they different?
yeah, so they were identical, but they were 100% different than what I had done, let's say 10 years earlier. Because so let me just paint the picture. So I'm in my 40s. I'm literally living on United Airlines because I've got these jobs which have global responsibility. So I'm responsible for business in South Africa, Russia, Japan, all over the world. So I'm constantly flying around doing this, general management job. Um, but I also, and I can tell you the story if you want to go into it, but I don't know how
Please,
much time we
please.
have here. But but there was a moment when I was living in Geneva when everything changed in terms of my priorities, if you will. But so I'm, yeah, staying with the bigger picture, I'm traveling all over the world. I'm trying to climb these mountains because slowly mountain climbing is starting to become a bigger part of my identity and who I am and what I
Right.
enjoy out of life. And so, but I'm working out in hotel gyms, lifting weights on the treadmill, on the bicycles. I'm running around the parking lots and, 4 o'clock in the morning to try to train. And I'll tell you, Sid, my first three tries on Everest, I committed the greatest sin that a climber can commit.
Really?
And that sin is the sin of arrogance. That
Mm.
I overestimated my physical capacity and I underestimated just how hard it is to climb these mountains at these extreme altitudes. So when I first went in 2002, I got my butt kicked. I got up to right below what's called the balcony on the Nepal side, around 27,500 feet, and my body just shut down. I was on my hands and knees, gagging, throwing up. I just,
Oh,
and
wow.
so I just turned myself around. It was just me and a young Sherpa who didn't speak any English, and I just said, I'm going down. Well, the next year I went back. It basically I repeated a lot of the same mistakes. I got to the same spot. My body had not acclimatized. I was fighting for everything. I knew I could go a step higher, but I didn't know if I could go lower. So I came home to really pretty defeated. But this is now in 2003. And my jobs are going well. I'm traveling around the world still. I'm still getting promotions. Life is really good in that respect. And then in 2008, my mom's Alzheimer's was getting worse and worse, and so that's when I
Sure.
began to say I'm going to climb to honor her. So I went back for the third time in 2008. Got to that same spot. I was with a Sherpa named Lam Babu, and I stopped and took my oxygen mask down. I said, Lam, how much further to the summit? And he looked at me and he said, at our pace, 11, 12 hours. And I went,
Wow. Wow.
I said, Lama, I can't do that. I can't do that. And so I unclipped from the rope, which is a big no-no, but I stepped aside and I watched 40 people go by me. And every time somebody went by me, my own belief in myself, my self-confidence just went down, down, down. And I remember looking at Lama. I said, Lama, I'm tired. He goes, I know, I know. And I said, let's go down. He goes, okay. So I came back down, all the way back down to base camp eventually. I gave away my down sleeping bag. I gave away my satellite phone. I gave away my boots. And I just said, I'm done. You know, is it hard or impossible? I began to think that summiting Mount Everest for me was impossible. I'm an O for 3. And, you know, just it wasn't going well. But then I came back home and I spent more time with mom. And again, seeing, as I said earlier, the grace and the dignity and the humor that she was handling this, you know, unbelievable situation. I got really inspired by her and made that vow. And then I said, what can I do to really make a difference in the world of Alzheimer's? It's got to be something that really stands out. And so I said, well, what if I tried the 7 summits? And uh, and I ended up working with a company for the public relations. I got sponsored by Johnson and Johnson. And somebody in a meeting said, "What if Alan did the 7 summits in 1 year?" And I'm like, 1 year? Basically, I'm going to live in a tent for a year. And I thought, well, that sounds like fun. So I started training totally different. I know this is a long way around to your original question. How did I train
No, no, no,
differently?
please. I actually, there are so many questions that I wanted to ask, and it's great that you're bringing this up because it is answering those questions for me. So please, this is great to
Uh,
go. Carry on.
feel free to just stop me. But yeah, so I trained totally different by, luckily enough, living here in Colorado, I have a 4,000 meter, 14,000 foot mountain, Longs Peak. Remember the same one I saw as a 12-year-old.
Sure.
I could look out my window and see the summit of Longs Peak from my house.
Wow.
And
Wow.
so I went and climbed Longs Peak once a week. And then I did two other outings of 2 to 4 to 6 hours with a 30-pound pack, also gaining elevation. So I did 3 outings a week. That's all I did. I didn't run. I didn't lift weights. I didn't even stretch, which is
No,
a big
nothing,
mistake.
no other physical exercise, nothing, nothing.
Just,
You have
just,
great genetics, Alan. You have your
I
awesome genetics.
no, no, no. I am, trust me, I am not genetically gifted. Um, I've been hard-headed is what I am. But I think that real world training, well, and also I thoroughly enjoy just being out in nature and climbing along a brushing stream or hearing the birds or seeing a deer or an elk. I mean, just that's what makes me go. And and as Anatoly Bukharev once said, the mountains it is his church, and I really resonate with that. I feel very similar in that respect. But yeah, so I trained totally different. It was all real world. It was no CrossFit, no orange, none of the trendy stuff. It was just get out
Wow.
there and go up and down mountains and get your merely building your cardiovascular and having balance in the rest of your muscle groups. And also building mental toughness. I would have said one last story about this one. I would have what I call the three knockdown rule. I would get up and drive up to Longs Peak in the middle of like January. It'd be wind blowing like crazy, snow up to my knees, and I'm, thrashing through the snow, with my
Wow.
poles and the wind coming in my face, and all of a sudden a gust would come and knock me over. And I'd laugh and I'd get back up. I didn't get hurt. I fell in the snow. But then I'd go again and knock me over. And I'd laugh again and I'd third time knock me over. And I go, okay, all right, you win for today. And I called it my three knockdown rule because what I was doing was that I was training myself to understand that I could survive in these really harsh conditions and maybe not always laugh at it, but I knew I could survive and I knew I could develop the coping mechanisms physically, mentally, and emotionally to be able to survive and excel in those type of difficult environments. And that type of training built the mental toughness, which allowed me to really to survive that night on K2 as we opened up this podcast with.
And then, so since you have a three knockdown rule, that happened to you in Mount Everest 2002, 3, and 8. Now, 2011, you go back. You go back to the same point where you failed three times. I mean, there has to be something extraordinary happening to you because you can't give up now. This is like 9 years in the making. Walk us through that point. That
Yeah.
must be a very biggest obstacle, especially mentally, you know. Maybe physically you felt fine, but mentally it was like, one time, two times, three times. I've reached my rule. What happened? How did you train differently, or what did you do differently this time in 2011 at the same point where you thought that?
Sid, I love this so much because I've obviously I've told these stories many, many times over the years, but I've never had anybody connect the dots of my three knockdown rule with my three tries on Everest. So I very good. I'm really I'm very impressed.
Thank you.
Um, so I was incredibly fortunate that when I got to Everest Base Camp, and I climbed with International Mountain Guides, IMG, Eric Simonson's organization out of Seattle, Washington area. And so I didn't know what Sherpa I was going to be climbing with, but I had hired a quote unquote personal Sherpa. In other words, I would have a Sherpa that would be with me throughout the entire expedition. And it ended up being Kami, Kami, from the village of Pangboche. And Kami has five children. His oldest is also a mountain guide. His next oldest is a monk in a monastery. His youngest son, Mingma, is currently going to get his PhD in renewable energy in Canada. His oldest daughter, Dawa, she works in London in the hospitality industry, and his youngest daughter, Karma, just got her nursing degree. She's going to become a nurse or a doctor rather. So Kami, when I first got introduced to Kami, he's about 3 inches shorter than I am, dark skin, almost sunburned really from his time. And Kami's never had any formal education whatsoever, can't read or write. But this man, when you stand next to him, the world is a better place. He exudes this aura of warmth and love and compassion, and he has a giving spirit that I've rarely seen in any other human in this world. As I said, Kami is my guardian angel in the mountains. He's got me out of trouble. He's taken care of me at times when I've been had really hard times. But when I first met Kami, I had this overwhelming sense that, okay, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. And he knew that I tried three previous times. So when I got to that rock, so when you leave the South Col and you climb up to
Mhm.
what's called the triangular face, You follow this boot path where everybody else has gone up. That's just the nature of the beast. And I got to that rock where I turned around the three previous times. And I actually
Wow.
walked over to the rock. I put my hand on the rock and I said, not this time. And I made the bend, got up to the balcony, changed my oxygen bottle, had a little bit of food and water, and then kept on going. But then, Sid, between the balcony and the south summit, it's a southeast face, and it's a
Hmm.
pretty steep ridge. It's probably 45, 50-degree angle. And it's
Wow.
steep. There's a fixed rope on it, and it's about the size of a one lane of a highway. So it's not really narrow, but not really wide. And it drops off literally thousands of feet on both sides, down the Kang Chung face and down into the Western Coombe. And I was about halfway through that, and all of a sudden I got on the other side of the mountain where now the wind is coming. And the wind picked up probably 30, 40 miles an hour. And I'm
Wow.
tired. I haven't had enough food, water. I'm exhausted. And the wind picked up and it kind of hit me. And again, I'm going, oh man, not again,
No.
not again. And that's when the all the training, the three knockdown rule, the time in the mountains, the suffering during training, but more importantly was the clarity of my purpose and what I was doing. That's what really gave me the strength to reach down into whatever it is you reach down into, your essence, your soul, you know, whatever the energy is that we exist from. And you tap into that a little bit more, and you take another step, and you take another step, and you take another step. And with every step, you're getting closer to your goal, and you're proving to yourself that you can do this. And this is a metaphor that I've used throughout life that when times get tough, you stop, you take stock of what you're doing, why you're doing it. You make the informed decision as to whether you want to continue or not, as if are you actually hurt or are you just hurting? And you make that decision and you take another step and you take another step. And so you're making an informed decision about what you do, not just operating off of emotion. So when I got to that rock, it was I did it in 3 hours. In the three previous times, it's taken me 6 hours to get there.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, I knew, tangibly, objectively that I was doing much better, but just also I just knew deep in my heart that, this is where I should be and this is what I should be doing at that time.
Wow. 9 years in the making to finally get to the top of Mount Everest. K2 was your first attempt and first summit, correct?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Okay.
First and only, never going
First and
back.
only. So my question to you is now, as someone who is so passionate, you climbed the two tallest peaks in the world. What is next for you? Like, I mean, you have tried Mount Everest 4 times, summited once. K2 you have tried. Would you rather go back? I mean, because someone like you who is so passionate about this, who is embedded in you, I can't see you sitting still and like nothing growing in your head. Like, I have to do something, because you're so competitive by nature. You have to be competitive to climb these peaks, regardless of what anyone says. So, what have you done over the last 11 years since your last climb to, I'm talking about K2? And would you ever go back on these summits again on a different route, trying to
Yeah.
accomplish
Yeah.
maybe a tougher route?
Yeah. Um, Again, that's a multifaceted question that gets deeper into just climbing mountains. When um, when I was a general manager at Hewlett Packard, running various organizations and divisions, people often say that well, a lot of people that are into business say the only reason we have a business is to make a profit, so that we can reinvest into for the shareholders and to reinvest in
Right.
research and development and grow our business. That's the only reason. Profit is the only thing that matters. Profit, profit, profit. And I'm fine with that. But my belief in running a business was that it was really all about the people. And it was creating an environment where individuals could achieve their maximum human potential. That's what my mission statement was as being a manager. And my belief was that if you created that environment where people were able to excel, they felt valued, they felt trusted, that they then would return that trust, that contract, if you will, with excellent performance. And then all of that would translate into excellent customer satisfaction, excellent product quality, excellent sales, and hence excellent profits. But it all started with creating that environment for the people.
Hmm.
Um, Climbing mountains to me was is similar in that respect that um, I never had a master plan. I've been on, you said 35, I don't know what the number is. I think it's 35, 37, 38, something like that, major expeditions.
37. Yes.
And, um, and I never had a master plan, just like I never had a master plan in working in business. I just let things develop organically as they would. And then just try to be nimble enough to react to what needed to be done in order to continue the momentum or to change course if it wasn't working. That's fine too.
Right. Right.
Um, so with climbing, I would go do these climbs and I would come back home and I would look at, there were five things that I evaluated each climb after. I'd come back home and evaluate how I performed on the climb. So, and actually it didn't really matter if I summited or not, but did I have a positive experience? And then I said, okay, now do I have support from my family to go again? Do I have support from my job to take the time off? Do I have the money? Do I have the physical capacity to suffer during the training and to put myself back in that harsh environment at altitude? And the most important one, though, Sid, was that did I have that deep burning desire to go back and do it again? Because climbing these mountains, but some people call it type A fun. When you're in, there's a great phrase from Thornton Wilder in one of his plays that he wrote. And he said that an adventure, it's a paraphrase, that an adventure is that when you're in the middle of it, you pray to God to get you back home alive. And when you're back home, you pray to God to go back and do it again. And
Wow.
that's often what mountain climbing is for me. You're in the middle of it. You're going, what am I doing? This is optional. This is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be a sport. And I'm paying for it too, on top of all this.
Right.
And I'm suffering. But if I felt like I had that deep desire to suffer again, then I would go and do another climb. So that's been my climbing career for the last 25 years. Um, the last 11 years have been a roller coaster between Everest and K2. I did Manaslu in between those and Alpamayo and some other really cool mountains. But then in 2017, I was training here in Colorado, right next to Long's Peak, on another
Hmm.
little mountain called Twin Sisters. It's 11,000 feet, and I was up there with my best friend Jim Davidson. And we went up on a really windy day. Jim was training to go to Everest, and I was going to go to Dhaulagiri, one of the 8,000-meter mountains in Nepal. And I got blown off the mountainside by a 100-mile-an-hour wind gust and
Wow.
ended up in a scree field, a rock field on the side of the mountain with my leg broken in three places. Um, so that was in February of 2017. It took me about 6 months of rehab just to be able to, go back up and even walk in the mountains again.
Wow.
But when I was on the operating table, the orthopedic surgeon that was going to put me back together, I looked at him and I said, Dr. Orr, I said, I know I'm 60 years old, but I don't want to be content to get off the couch and move to the chair. I want to go climb again. And he said, okay, let's do this. And so he did a great job of putting me back together. I have a titanium rod in my lower right leg. And I did go back and climbed, went back with Kami over to Nepal and climbed a mountain called Island Peak. It's about
Hmm.
20,000 feet. Pretty straightforward climb, but it was important for me to get kind of back on the horse again.
Right.
And then I went down to Ecuador, did the volcanoes in Bolivia for some of those. And then COVID came and, and the world kind of came to a halt. But I'm still active here in Colorado with my 14ers, but I'm probably not going to go back. Well, I'm not probably. I am not going to go back and do another 8,000-meter mountain. There's a saying. I think it was created for pilots, but I think it applies to mountaineers as well. Is that there's old climbers and bold climbers, but not old bold climbers.
Love that part.
And I'm going to be turning 70 in July of next year. I am
You
incredibly
look great.
grateful. Well, thank you, sir. And I feel very grateful for everything I've been able to accomplish. Gratitude to all the people that have helped me along the way. It's been an honor to honor my mother the way that I've been able to doing it like this. So it's just, it's been a good ride. I'm not going to be you know, trying to grab more than I should get. I don't want to be greedy. I want to be grateful, not greedy.
Uh, One question I have for you, and this is always, it has always intrigued me. When you're on top of the peak of Mount Everest K2, I mean the view, it's must be mesmerizing, and that is something that's going to stay with you forever, you know? Do you miss that part, or is that,
Yeah.
or do you not recognize in the moment because you are there, you just want to get down, and then you don't realize what you're looking at and how lucky you are in the world to be there, at that moment. Do you ever get that reminiscence of your summits on 2011 and 14?
All of the above. I absolutely have those memories. I have a tagline in what I've used for 20 years now that memories are everything. And it's really that tagline is in conjunction with Alzheimer's because, as you know, people lose their memory with Alzheimer's. So it's kind of a hallmark of that. But also for me, those memories of standing on a summit of K2 or Alpamayo in Peru or standing on top of Amanda Blom, the first mountain, that picture right there on the website where it says donate memories everything, that's taken on Mount
Yes.
Rainier as the sun is coming
Okay,
up.
this one. Okay.
I'm just, the
And that
feeling
is
that you
your picture,
have.
Alan. And
Yeah,
that's
that's my
your picture.
picture.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Wow. Okay, great. Please carry on.
But the feeling that you have when you're on the summit is really a mixture of different things. You nailed all of them. You feel, elation, you feel exhaustion, you feel trepidation about getting back down again. Uh, for me, I add a lot of gratitude into that, and also staying very in the moment, staying very aware of my situation, how I'm feeling, how much water do I have left, how much food do I have left, if I'm on oxygen, how much supply do I have left. So really managing the mechanics of the climb is just as important, but also giving yourself permission to take that moment to look around and realize that you're seeing a view that very few people on this planet will ever get to see. And that feeds right back full circle to the gratitude and just being able to look down on the top of mountains that normally you only see from an airplane seat while you have 2 feet on the ground is a gift. It's a gift that I don't take lightly. I don't. I admire anybody who tries it, whether they make it or not. It's the Teddy Roosevelt quote of "It's the man in the arena that counts, not the people in the grandstands that are telling you what you could have, should have, would have done." Mountaineering is a sport that brings out a lot of negativity in people. They, make fun of people that climb Mount Everest. They talk about Everest having a Starbucks on top. And what people fail to understand, I think, is that people climb for their own reasons. And everybody has a different, unique, and personal reason, what their why is. My why was deeply unique and personal to me around Ida. And I don't need to justify that why to anyone. But when I am on a summit, I am going to celebrate that moment, and I'm not going to let any detractors or any negativity creep into me because this is something that is meaningful to me, and I think it makes me a better version of myself to be able to contribute to humanity in a better way. And it all comes through the suffering and the testing that you get with doing a sport like this. And I'm not suggesting that everybody has to go climb Mount Everest to find that deep meaning for their life. You can find it just through, raising your children or being a great husband or a wife or an employer or, learning a different language or, being knowledgeable about different parts of the world. So lots of different ways that we could all become, better versions of ourselves and contribute to humanity in a positive way.
Well, and is this the place? We would like to put a description of this in the episode below in the description. Is this the correct page where people can go and donate to the charity of
Yeah, go
to the
go ahead and click on donate.
Okay, let's do this.
And so
Okay.
that's the page that I've got a number of different organizations the Cure
So I
Alzheimer's
will put
Fund.
this one. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay.
these are
So we'll
different
put this one.
organizations that I would suggest if people don't have their own organization to to donate
So
to.
you have five organizations: the Cure Alzheimer's Fund, Prevention Registry, National Down Alzheimer's Association, as well as Giver Action Network. So you have five
Yeah.
agencies that you are. Okay, perfect. So we would put this. Uh, Last thing, couple of things before we wrap this up. I want to talk about Summit Coach. Uh, walk us through what Summit Coach is all about. How long have you been? How long ago did you launch this, and how has it been so far for you on a business front, helping people achieve their mountaineering goals?
Okay.
And I'll keep
Thank
the
you for.
link open so people can see a little bit. We can go around. Please go ahead.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so it's summitcoach.org, O-R-G. I couldn't get .com. It was taken, so I had to use org. I started Summit Coach in 2016. As I knew that I was going to be winding down my own career as I got older, I still wanted to stay in the game. I still wanted to give back. And I thought, I've had all of these wonderful, wonderful experiences, both good and bad, that I had this lifetime of experience and real hands-on practical knowledge. And so I think it would be almost selfish of me not to give back in some way. So I started this organization or started this service, consulting service, and it's available to anybody. And I make it incredibly affordable. People laugh at it when I tell them how much I charge, which is, depends upon the nature or the length of the engagement. But what they get from that is that I work with them on developing a physical training plan,
Hmm.
an emotional and mental toughness training plan. I take a very holistic approach to helping people get their summits. It's not just about the physical training, but it's total preparation of, building that mental toughness, having the right gear that you know exactly how to use all that gear, and understanding all the skills that you need for mountain climbing, like rock climbing, ice climbing, moving on snowshoes or on crampons, using an ice axe, self-arresting, self-belay, moving on a fixed rope or guide roped up to another team member. There's a ton of different hard skills that you need to have in order to go safely climb a mountain. And also, to me, it's really important that you are self-sufficient as much as possible. You want to earn the right to go climb a mountain, not just pay for the right to go climb a mountain. And that's what I try to do as Summit Coach is help people earn the right to go climb their mountain. And then I'll help them pick out the guide service that they want. I don't get any compensation from anybody, any guide company, any gear company, nobody. My compensation comes from my clients again, which is very affordable for them. And so people can click on this site and go and fill out the form and schedule a 30-minute free time with me if they want. And we can talk about what their goals are. And I have them fill out some different forms. And then we sign a contract and get into an engagement. And I write a strategic plan for them, depending upon what they want to do, whether it's one climb or something like the Seven Summits or the Adventure Grand Slam, or maybe they climbed Everest. Now they want to go do K2, but they're a little apprehensive about it. So let's work on, having the skills to do that. Um, yeah, so it's a full service consulting operation, and that's really my mountaineering passion today is giving back in this way, and I absolutely thoroughly enjoy it. I've been able to coach hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people since 2016, and I've got scores currently under contract right now that I'm working with that are various phases of their own personal projects.
Wow, this is unbelievable. I really love what you're doing. As you said, a way of giving back to the community. And wow, this is awesome, you know.
And by the
And
way, thank you. And by the way, 10% of all my gross revenue, I donate to an Alzheimer's nonprofit each year.
okay, so that's great too. And then uh, so this must be like you are fully invested. I mean, yes, you're helping someone else climb, but I can see you're extensively involved in your consulting business, the kind of services you offer. It's listed in detail in bullet points from start to finish. So you're actually a part of it, you know, all the way till the end, from the beginning till the end, right?
Right.
So yeah, you're invested very much in this as well. And is it usually via Zoom? Is it usually via Skype, international clients, or is it you meet them in person, or is it all of the above?
Yeah, it's all the above, but it's primarily through through either telephone calls or Zoom or WhatsApp. So we all use our technology to save money. So that's the best way of doing it. Also, I mean, I support my clients. I've got several on Aconcagua right now in Argentina, and so I'm supporting one client, and I've been talking to her live while she's on the mountain to kind of help
Oh,
her through
wow. Okay.
some rough spots. So, and I've got I even have people to give their spouses my contact information, and I've had spouses contact me to say I haven't heard from my loved one here in 2 days. You think everything's okay? So I always try to redirect them back to the guide company that they're with, but I can provide a little bit of knowledge and context to hey, not no news is good news, and don't worry about them. This is normal not to go hear from them, whatever, based upon my experiences. But yeah, it's a lot of fun working with the whole community, and I especially love working with the younger people out there that are just getting into mountaineering. Because as I see the sunset, I want to see the sunrise in their faces as they grow into the sport and get more passion for it and create new routes. And with global warming, the mountains are changing, so it's going to require some
Yes.
pioneering over the next decades to find new routes and new ways to safely climb these mountains.
That's unbelievable. Last but not the least, I also want to share this is your website. You have so much content, Alan. I went through this and I was literally blown away. I was literally blown away by the amount of content you have. You are probably one of the only mountaineers I know uh, who has so much content about everything on your site. Like, look at this. You have everything, you know? Uh, so you're like the Wikipedia of mountaineering, if I had to put it together, you know?
I'll take
And
that.
no, no, of course. And once again, people can contact you via the Summit Coach as well as your website. Is there any other way for people to contact you besides the two that I mentioned?
No, that's right. The best way is just go through the website, either email or fill out the contact form on the Summit Coach. But also, I'm on social media. I'm on Facebook, and I'm not on Twitter. I'm on Blue Sky and LinkedIn and
Instagram.
whatever Instagram. Yeah, yeah. So I'm everywhere. YouTube. I've got a podcast on YouTube, which is pretty popular as well. Not as popular as yours, but it's there.
No, 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 no. Actually, I did, and actually, we have the link of your Instagram, YouTube, also listed in the description of this episode. So if people want to contact you, check out your social platforms. And you do have. There is a reason why you have received so much love from this community, and you have so much loyal fans and followers. And I read a lot of comments on your videos, and it's because I can see how passionate you are and you represent the mountaineering industry, at its optimum prime, whatever word you want to use. So, uh, Alan, I think we covered a lot of things, and this was truly fascinating. I loved our conversation today. It was so great to talk to you today.
Well, I think you said it was fun for me as well. I loved the opportunity to go kind of wander around on different topics, and you giving me that freedom in this conversation to do that. So I appreciate what you do with your podcast, and I appreciate you having me on. It was an honor. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Alan, and we wish you a great 2026. And once again, I'm really humbled for you accepting our invite to be on our show. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care.
You take care. Bye bye. Bye bye.